The stars shone cold and silent, stretching endlessly across the void of space. Captain Valera stood on the bridge of the Galtrian flagship Dominion's Wrath, her hands gripping the railing as she stared at the sensor displays. For centuries, her people had ruled the nearby sectors with iron precision. The Galtrian fleets were unmatched, feared in every system. Nothing had challenged them, not pirates, not rogue colonies, not even the minor alien races that tried to rise against their authority. Yet tonight was different. Something was out there. The scanners picked up a single signal far beyond Galtrian borders, a strange energy signature that pulsed faintly, but with impossible power. Valera frowned, her instincts screaming caution. "It's human," she whispered to herself. Humans were supposed to be weak. Scattered across a handful of star systems, barely advanced enough to build mining vessels or freighters, they were irrelevant. Galtrian historians had written them off as a minor species, a curiosity with no real threat. And yet, here was a ship, massive, sleek, and unlike anything the Galtrians had ever encountered, moving through the void with speed and precision that defied reason. The fleet around her hummed with readiness, weapons charged and shields glowing. Valera's heart beat faster, not from fear of defeat, but from the thrill of the unknown. "Prepare the fleet. Lock onto the human ship. Let's see what they are made of," she commanded, her voice steady, though a hint of unease lingered beneath it. Her crew obeyed immediately, the hum of their machines echoing like a heartbeat across the bridge. Minutes passed, stretching into tension. The human vessel drifted silently, showing no signs of surrender or communication. It did not. Broadcast messages did not try to negotiate, did not even acknowledge the Galtrian fleet. It simply arrived, floating like a dark jewel against the stars. And then, in a moment that would be remembered for centuries, the unthinkable happened. The human ship released a pulse of energy so precise, so absolute, that the Galtrian weapons and shields were torn apart in an instant. One by one, the Galtrian ships erupted into fire and debris, the explosions lighting up the void like deadly stars. Within 5 minutes, more than 100 ships, the pride of the Galtrian Empire, vanished. Not a single vessel survived. Valera's hands shook as she stared at the empty space. The silence that followed was worse than the explosions. The void seemed to pulse with the presence of something greater, something the Galtrians had never imagined. Her mind struggled to understand. No tactical maneuver, no experimental weapon, no clever trick could account for this. And yet, the humans had done it. The humans had arrived, destroyed a fleet, and made no further move. Fear spread quickly across the bridge, but it was not blind panic. It was the kind of fear that awakens respect, the recognition of a force far beyond comprehension. Valera whispered to herself, What are they?" Her voice was trembling, and the weight of those words seemed to hang in the vacuum of space. The Galtrian Empire had faced countless enemies, but none like this. Humanity, a species dismissed as weak and primitive, had shown them a power that was absolute, terrifying, and unyielding. And yet, there was something strange in the way the humans moved. Calm, silent, almost disciplined. There was no cruelty in their actions, no desire to destroy beyond necessity. On board the human vessel, the crew remained quiet, their faces solemn as they stared at the distant stars. Captain Elias Mercer did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply watched, knowing that this demonstration was not about power. It was about survival. Humanity had always been underestimated, always pushed to the brink, and yet always risen. Tonight was just another moment to remind the galaxy why humans were never weak, never defenseless, and never to be ignored. The void was quiet again. The stars continued to shine. But something fundamental had changed. The Galtrians, and soon, every other species in the galaxy, would never forget the night the unknown human warship arrived and erased an entire armada in 5 minutes. The destruction of the Galtrian fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Word traveled faster than light through communication relays and trading routes. Entire systems trembled at the news. A single human warship had arrived, and in less than 5 minutes, it had erased 100 ships, the pride of the mighty Galtrian Empire. No one had seen anything like it before. In the capitals of countless star systems, leaders held emergency meetings. Scientists, generals, and diplomats argued in anxious voices, but fear drowned out reason. If one human ship can destroy an entire fleet, what would happen if they attacked a whole planet? Whispered one counselor, his eyes wide with terror. Across the room, another tried to argue, insisting that the humans could not possibly be that advanced. But no one wanted to hear reason. The stories, the videos, and the records left no room for doubt. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy now feared them. Meanwhile, in human space, the warship floated silently among the stars. The humans aboard the Aurora's Wrath moved with quiet efficiency. There was no celebration, no cheering at the destruction they had caused. Captain Elias Mercer stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the void, thinking of what had just happened. Every action taken had been necessary. Humanity had always faced threats greater than themselves, and now the galaxy had been reminded of that truth. Lieutenant Arya Voss, his second in command, approached carefully. "Captain," she said, her voice calm but tense, "the reports are coming in. Systems are panicking. Many are sending emissaries. Some are threatening retaliation." Mercer shook his head slowly. "Let them panic," he replied. "They must learn that we fight only when we have to. Fear is not our goal. Survival is. But the lesson is the same. Never underestimate humanity." The crew understood him. Humans had survived against odds no other species could imagine. Countless generations had faced extinction, starvation, war, and betrayal. Yet humanity had always found a way to endure. That enduring spirit was now visible in the void, in a ship that seemed both small and limitless in its power. In the sectors beyond human space, ships and colonies shivered at the idea of human retaliation. Traders whispered to each other. Pilots refused missions, and fleets were recalled to protect their homeworlds. Even seasoned generals who had commanded thousands of soldiers and hundreds of ships could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The humans were not like other species. They did not rely on overwhelming numbers or fearsome weapons alone. They relied on strategy, ingenuity, and an unshakable will to survive. Back on the Aurora's Wrath, Mercer walked along the bridge, observing the crew. Each member carried themselves with quiet confidence, yet none were proud or boastful. This was not a victory party. This was humanity doing what it had always done, protecting itself, calmly and decisively. He knew that the galaxy would soon label them dangerous, and that was acceptable. The humans did not seek war. They only sought to defend what was theirs. He paused at the viewport, looking out at the endless stars. "One day," he said softly, more to himself than anyone else, "the galaxy will understand us. They will know we do not fight for glory. We fight because we must." And somewhere far beyond human space, the Galtrians began to rebuild their fleets, their pride wounded, their fear growing. Other species watched in quiet dread. Humans were no longer an unknown threat, they were a force of nature. And the galaxy had learned the hard way that when humans appeared, survival itself was in their hands. The night stretched on, the stars unchanging, but the silence carried a new weight. Across thousands of light years, a single truth spread. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. Fear had found a new name. That name was human. The Galactic Council had never faced anything like this. The chamber, a massive sphere of shining metal and floating platforms, buzzed with voices from thousands of worlds. Leaders argued, shouted, and waved data tablets filled with images of the destroyed Galtrian fleet. The air was thick with panic, disbelief, and fear. For the first time in centuries, the Council was unsure what to do. Ambassador Kryn of Thalor rose, his voice calm, but heavy with gravity. "We are no longer dealing with a minor species," he said. "This is not a threat that can be ignored. Humanity has shown us power beyond our imagination. They have destroyed an entire fleet, our most advanced fleet, in minutes. If we make a wrong move, our worlds could be next." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some counselors demanded immediate retaliation. "We cannot let this go unanswered," shouted one representative, slamming his hand on the floating table. Others begged for diplomacy, arguing that humans might be reasoned with. But even the most cautious voices trembled. The name of the humans carried weight now, fear now. "No," Kryn continued, raising his hand to silence the chamber. "Retaliation, without understanding, will destroy us. We must tread carefully. The humans are not like any species we have faced. They are intelligent, adaptable, and relentless. And from what we have observed, they do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival. And when a human fights for survival, nothing can stop them." The room went quiet. Silence fell over thousands of representatives, as each tried to imagine what it would be like to face a species that could destroy an entire armada without hesitation. They felt a mixture of awe and terror. Meanwhile, messages from the edge of human space continued to arrive. Colonies reported human patrols, HIP silently watching the borders, analyzing every move of neighboring systems. Yet, at the same time, there was no sign of aggression beyond what had already occurred. Humanity was strong, but restrained. They had power, but they did not abuse. The galaxy was witnessing the discipline and focus of a species that had been underestimated for centuries, and now every council member knew it. In the observation deck above the chamber, holograms of the human warship rotated slowly, glowing, against the dark void. Every eye followed it, and every mind raced with possibilities. What technology powered it? What strategies could it use next? How could they possibly survive an encounter with humans? At that moment, the chamber agreed on one thing. They needed to understand humanity before making any move. Teams of scientists, diplomats, and strategists were assigned to study human systems. Reconnaissance ships were sent to the borders, though no one dared enter human space. Fear had replaced confidence. Caution had replaced arrogance and respect, though grudging had begun to grow. Even with all their preparations, the council could not shake the feeling of dread. The humans had arrived quietly without warning, and had instantly changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had shown strength, intelligence, and restraint. And most terrifying of all, they were only beginning to reveal what they could do. Back on the Aurora's Wrath, Captain Elias Mercer observed the galaxy through the ship's massive viewport. He had no need to celebrate or announce his presence. The galaxy already knew humanity was here. Their actions spoke louder than any words. "We are not conquerors," he said quietly to his crew. "We are protectors, and we will endure, no matter what they think of us." The council argued late, into the galactic night, but the truth was clear. Humanity was no longer an unknown species. They had arrived, and the galaxy had felt their power firsthand. Fear had taken root, and every system would remember that name. Human, strong, relentless, and unyielding. The stars beyond the council's chamber twinkled in silence, but they seemed different now, filled with new possibilities, and a quiet warning. A single human warship had arrived and erased an entire fleet. The galaxy would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, yet the galaxy remained in shock. Systems that once ignored humanity now watched every move with nervous eyes. Trade routes were disrupted, fleets were recalled, and diplomatic missions waited at the edges of human space, hoping to understand a species that had shattered the pride of the Galtrian Empire in minutes. But the humans did not seek attention. The Aurora's Wrath floated silently in orbit around one of humanity's outer colonies. Its crew worked efficiently, maintaining the ship with quiet focus. There was no celebration for the destruction of fleets, no prideful boasts. Humans did not revel in fear. They prepared for it. Captain Elias Mercer walked along the bridge, observing the crew. Each human moved with precision, disciplined and calm. "We cannot predict what others will do," he said to Lieutenant Arya Voss, who stood beside him. "Some will test us, some will act out of fear, and when they do, we must be ready." Voss nodded, her eyes scanning the holographic display of incoming signals. "Captain, the coalition fleets from the outer sectors are gathering. They believe they can challenge us. They believe they can intimidate us." Mercer's face remained calm. "Let them come. They will learn, as all others have, that humans survive, and when survival is threatened, we respond. That is all." The coalition arrived quietly, their ships forming a massive armada near human territory. They assumed humanity would surrender. They assumed fear would drive them away. But the humans did not flee. They did not hide. The Aurora's Wrath and its supporting vessels simply positioned themselves with quiet efficiency, ready for whatever challenge came. The first shot fired was not from the humans. Energy beams lanced across space, aimed at the humans with arrogance and certainty. The coalition believed in their numbers, in the might of their fleets, but within moments, their confidence was shattered. The humans moved as one, anticipating every maneuver, countering every attack with precision. Shields shimmered and deflected energy blasts. Countermeasures neutralized missiles before they could reach the hull. Then the humans struck, not with rage, not with cruelty, but with exacting force. Ships were torn apart silently, their destruction clean, efficient, and absolute. Within 10 minutes, the coalition fleet was obliterated. Not a single vessel remained intact. On the bridge of the Aurora's Wrath, the crew maintained silence. They did not cheer. They did not gloat. Captain Mercer spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret with the stars themselves. "We fight not for glory. We fight because it is necessary. We fight because we protect what we love. And when we fight, we endure." In the distant sectors, news of the human victory spread like wildfire. Fear turned into awe, and awe into respect. Humanity was no longer just a name. It was a force, a reminder of resilience and strength. No fleet, no matter how powerful, could underestimate them. Even among the humans, there was no arrogance. They understood the cost of power and the responsibility that came with it. They had the ability to destroy, yet they chose precision and restraint. They had become the standard by which other species measured strength, not just military strength, but discipline, courage, and intelligence. Captain Mercer looked out of the viewport at the distant stars. Somewhere far across the galaxy, other civilizations whispered of humans with fear and respect. But he felt no triumph, only a quiet resolve. Humanity had shown its power to protect itself. That was all that mattered. And as the stars shone endlessly, in the void, a new truth settled across the galaxy. Humans were not to be challenged lightly. They were cunning, resilient, and unstoppable when survival was at stake. Any who dared test them would learn the same lesson that the Galtrians had learned, and the Coalition now knew all too well. The void returned to silence, but it was no longer empty. It carried the quiet warning of a species that had arrived not with pride, but with unwavering strength. Humanity was here, and the galaxy had finally realized it. The galaxy would never forget the name of humanity. From the edge of known space to the bustling centers of advanced civilizations, whispers spread like wildfire. A single human warship had destroyed fleets, faced entire coalitions, and yet had shown discipline and restraint. Humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a legend. In the council halls of distant systems, leaders spoke in hushed tones. "We cannot underestimate them," said one ambassador, voice trembling. "They do not fight for glory, they fight for survival. And when survival is at stake, nothing can stop them." Others nodded, fear and respect mixing in equal measure. The stories of humans were no longer tales of primitive species. They were cautionary legends, reminders that the galaxy had underestimated the wrong species. On countless worlds, citizens watched the stars with new eyes. Trade fleets paused to reconsider routes, and young pilots dreamed not of glory, but of understanding the humans' mysterious strength. Human colonies became symbols of hope and resilience. Where other civilizations built walls of fear, humanity built shields of ingenuity, courage, and unity. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora's Wrath, Captain Elias Mercer moved quietly through the ship, observing his crew. They were calm, precise, and disciplined, each member aware of the weight of what they represented. They did not take pride in destruction. They carried a burden of responsibility. They had the power to annihilate, but their mission was protection, not conquest. Lieutenant Aria Voss approached Mercer, concern in her eyes. "Captain, systems are sending messages of admiration, of fear. Some even ask for alliances. Our reputation spreads faster than any fleet." Mercer nodded slowly. "Let it spread," he said, his voice calm. "But remember, respect earned through fear is not trust. We must continue to show who we truly are. Strength without purpose is meaningless. Humanity survives because we protect, because we endure, and because we fight when it is necessary. That is our message, and that is our legacy." As the weeks passed, humanity's legend grew. Stories of human resilience and ingenuity reached civilizations that had never seen a human ship. Pilots spoke of the quiet precision of human strategy. Scientists marveled at their technology, unable to comprehend its elegance and efficiency. Soldiers whispered of the humans' unyielding will, the refusal to surrender, and the calm courage that seemed almost unnatural in the chaos of battle. Even former enemies began to respect them. Galtrian officers who had witnessed their fleets destroyed reconsidered their ambitions. Coalitions that once plotted retaliation now hesitated, unsure if any attack could succeed against humans. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in silence and devastation. Humans were not to be underestimated, feared, or ignored. Yet, on the Aurora's Wrath, life continued in quiet normalcy. Crew members trained, maintained the ship, and prepared for unknown challenges ahead. There was no boasting, no indulgence in fame. Humanity's strength lay not in the fear they inspired, but in the discipline and courage that defined them. Each human understood that survival required humility, planning, and resilience. Captain Mercer stood at the bridge one evening, staring at the distant stars. "Our legend grows," he said softly, almost to himself. "But stories alone do not protect us. Our actions must continue to reflect who we are. We fight to protect. We endure. And we rise not for fear, not for glory, but because we must." And so across the galaxy the human story spread, inspiring awe, caution, and respect. They became a symbol of what a species could achieve when united, determined, and fearless. Their name became a beacon, a warning, and a promise. Humanity was here, strong, disciplined, and unstoppable when survival demanded it. The stars remained silent, but now they carried a memory of something extraordinary. Humanity had arrived, proven its strength, and earned its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as legends. And the galaxy would never forget the humans who had changed everything with courage, precision, and an unyielding spirit. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, but curiosity could not be stopped. After months of observation, a delegation from the Galactic Council approached the edges of human space. They came in small ships, unarmed, cautious, and silent, carrying only hope for dialogue. The humans had destroyed fleets, yet had shown no desire to conquer. Now the galaxy sought answers. Aboard the Aurora's Wrath, Captain Elias Mercer watched the approaching vessels. His crew moved quietly, every motion precise, every sensor calibrated. There was no celebration, no thrill of confrontation. This was a moment of importance, a chance to show not just strength but wisdom. Lieutenant Aria Voss stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the distant ships. "Captain, they are here. They expect negotiation, but I sense fear in their approach. They do not understand us yet. Mercer nodded slowly. Let them come. Fear is natural. What matters is how we respond. Humans do not provoke. Humans do not escalate. But humans protect. That is what they must understand. The council delegates arrived, their small ships trembling in the void. Dwarfed by the immense human warship, they hovered silently, unsure of what to expect. The humans could have destroyed them in moments, but they did not. They waited. They observed. They extended a gesture of restraint. When the council ships finally docked at the human station, Captain Mercer greeted them personally. His face was calm, his voice steady, but every word carried weight. "We are not your enemies," he said simply. "We do not seek war. We only defend what we hold dear. If you come with peace, you will find it here. If you come with aggression, know that humans survive and endure." The delegates exchanged glances, awe and relief mixing in their eyes. They had expected pride, arrogance, or hostility. Instead, they found discipline, honesty, and strength. Humanity had proven itself capable of incredible power, yet chose restraint. They had destroyed fleets without malice, defended their space, without cruelty, and now spoke with wisdom beyond their apparent age as a species. Over the following days, discussions took place. Humans explained their ways, their principles, and their history. They shared nothing that would threaten the galaxy unnecessarily, but enough to show why they acted as they did. They fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival and protection. Ambassador Kryn, who had once feared humanity, now found himself moved. "Your people," he said, his voice catching. "You are unlike anything we imagined. You wield power, yet you temper it with wisdom. You fight when you must, but you do not strike without reason. The galaxy has much to learn from humanity." Mercer looked out at the stars, a quiet sadness in his eyes. "Power is meaningless without purpose," he said softly. "We will always fight to protect, but we will never fight to dominate. That is the way humans endure. That is what defines us." News of the first peaceful contact spread quickly. The galaxy began to understand that humanity was not only strong, they were disciplined, intelligent, and honorable. Fear began to mingle with respect, and slowly, hope. Hope that a species could exist that balanced immense power with moral restraint. On the Aurora's Wrath, the crew continued their daily routines, calm and precise. They had faced war and destruction, yet chose peace when possible. They understood the lesson they offered. Humanity's strength lay not just in weapons or technology, but in courage, discipline, and heart. And so, across the void, a new narrative began to take shape. Humans were no longer merely dangerous. They were a promise that power could exist with wisdom, that courage could be tempered with restraint, and that even in the vast, chaotic galaxy, honor could survive. As Captain Mercer stood at the bridge staring at the stars beyond, he whispered softly, almost to himself, "We fight to protect. We endure. We rise. And that is humanity." The galaxy listened, for the first time not with fear alone, but with a quiet, growing understanding. Centuries later, the galaxy still remembered the night the unknown human warship arrived. That single moment had changed everything. The Galtrian Empire, once arrogant and invincible, had learned fear. Coalitions and rogue factions had learned respect, and countless civilizations had learned a truth that would echo across the stars forever. Humanity was unstoppable when survival demanded it, but humans did not become legends through conquest. They became legends because of their spirit, their courage, and their unyielding determination. They had faced enemies far stronger, challenges far greater, and dangers beyond imagination. Yet, through every trial, humans endured, adapted, and rose stronger. Their victories were not fueled by cruelty. They were fueled by the desire to protect, to endure, and to survive against all odds. On the Aurora's Wrath, descendants of Captain Elias Mercer's crew continued their mission. Ships patrolled the outer colonies, monitored the borders, and quietly ensured the safety of humanity's systems. They did not boast of past victories. They did not seek glory. Every action, every patrol, every decision carried the weight of centuries of survival and the responsibility of being human. Legends of humans spread across the galaxy like starlight. Children on distant worlds whispered tales of a single human warship that had erased an entire armada in 5 minutes. Scholars debated the strategies humans used, the discipline they displayed, and the courage that allowed them to face impossible odds. Soldiers studied their tactics, not only for fear, but for inspiration. Humanity became both a warning and a hope, a symbol of what a species could achieve when united, fearless and determined. Even those who had once been enemies found themselves changed. The Galtrians, who had once laughed at the idea of humans as a threat, now told stories of their encounters with quiet reverence. Coalition leaders who had sent fleets to test human strength spoke of their failure and their awe. Across countless worlds, humans were remembered not just for their power, but for their choices, the discipline, restraint, and morality that guided that power. Captain Mercer's words, recorded in history and memory, were repeated across systems and generations. We fight to protect, we endure, we rise. That is humanity, that is why we survive. These words became a mantra, a lesson, and a warning. They reminded the galaxy that humans were strong, yes, but stronger still because of their hearts, their minds, and their will. In the endless silence of space, humans moved like guardians. Their presence was quiet, but unmistakable. They were unknown to some, mysterious to many, and powerful to all. They did not conquer for greed. They did not destroy for glory. They endured because they must. They fought because they cared, and they rose because surrender was never an option, and in that endurance lay their true power. The galaxy would tell stories of humans for millennia, not of domination, but of hope. Humans had arrived quietly, without warning, erased armadas, and yet left the galaxy not in ruin, but in awe. The legacy of the unknown warship became a beacon. The human race was to be respected, understood, and most importantly, remembered. The stars continued to shine, silent witnesses to a species that had forever changed the balance of the galaxy. And somewhere, in the hearts of those who looked to the sky with hope or fear, the message was clear. Humanity was here, and when humans fought to survive, they did so with courage, intelligence, and a spirit that no force in the galaxy could break. The humans of the Aurora's wrath and the generations that followed remained vigilant, wise and strong. They were not gods, nor were they conquerors. They were simply human, undaunted, unstoppable, and unforgettable. And in the quiet depths of space, their legend lived on, eternal, radiant, and unbroken. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.